And so young women growing up today are getting this sort of wonderfully confounding set of messages. You know, you can be a neuroscientist, be good at STEM, play with trains like your brother, play with blocks, learn math, but wear a tutu and save the world before you're 17.
Based on the fact that we're about 15 years difference in age, I think you can tell a lot about how quickly America changed during our lifetimes by the fact that my perception of how women should behave and what they should do and how hard they needed to fight was somewhat different from Deb's growing up. We'll be talking a lot about that, but I'd like to start with one element in the book, the quest for perfection, because I was particularly taken and saddened by a quote from one of our most illustrious young alums in the book, Courtney Martin. "We are the daughters of feminists who said, 'You can be anything,' and we heard, 'You have to be everything.'" What happened? Was it that with all those choices, we felt that we couldn't choose, that we had to choose all of the above?
You know, I think, let me just start with the sort of the generational point you made, because I think it's so important, and you and I have had many conversations about this. But I think after the 1950s, history, and particularly American history for women, moved really, really quickly. Mm-hmm. And so the year in which you were born as a woman really shaped your attitudes towards being a woman, being a feminist, really the whole way you thought about what your future was likely to hold. And I think I was born in 1963. And I think what happened for women of my generation was that we were really the very first generation that heard from the moment we were tiny that you can be everything, you can be whatever you want. You can do what we, your mothers, could not do. And I think that made us, on the one hand, an incredibly privileged generation, because we grew up with these wonderful sets of dreams, but also in many ways, a deeply conflicted generation, because we were kind of the first generation that failed miserably because we could do everything. And ultimately, of course, we did it. And I think Courtney, who's a generation younger than I am, is reflecting the fact that sadly, this multiplication of expectations has only gotten worse. And so young women growing up today are getting this sort of wonderfully confounding set of messages. You know, you can be a neuroscientist, be good at STEM, play with trains like your brother, play with blocks, learn math, but wear a tutu and save the world before you're 17. And you know, we see them at Barnard, and they're wonderful girls, but they're exhausted by the time they show up at college, mm-hmm. because they've already been perfect for 17 years of their lives.
And we don't send those same messages to young men.
No, I think particularly not to white boys. You know, very rarely do you hear parents saying to a white boy, particularly a white boy who's born relatively affluent, you can be whatever you want, because that's sort of presumed.
Right.
So I think all too often, you know, for better or worse, when we're raising white boys, as long as they're not killing anybody, we're okay. But we don't put all these expectations on them.